Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Animal Kingdom. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. First and foremost, let's start off with all the stuff in the past where we have Jake, Manny, and Smurf pulling off a job, like robbing like VCRs from the back of that truck, interestingly enough, because it's like, man, that's so like so far back that it's like crazy to think about, like, right, that back when VCRs were so like expensive and stuff, it's like, man, that seems like, I know it's in the past, but it's crazy to think just about how far away that is, just even from present day, like how like antiquated like VCRs. It's crazy to think about. I'm getting like too much of my own old man brain to a certain extent, but it was interesting. Like, it went off without a hitch. They're even selling them later. I even love that they're selling like X-rated tapes with them. It's like, yeah, you probably want this one, and Mr. Smurf is like, you'll want this one. It actually has a pretty good story. I love that. But nevertheless, it's like, you know, Manny's like, oh, here's the money. She's like, no, I don't have to count it. I know it's all there. So it's like, well, is Jake going to get his cut? Well, Jake ended up having to leave because he wanted to meet up. He has to meet up with Cheryl. So it's like, oh, is she going to take him back? Because immediately, I love the fact is that Smurf is like, nah, like he'll come running back, like when after everything kind of implodes a little bit with Cheryl. It's like, well, obviously we know like something does happen. I mean, they eventually have a kid together, but it's like, so I'm assuming things don't work out with Cheryl. But it's just interesting, like, how, you know, Jake's in her life, but also, like, Billy's popped up in her life, too. So it's, like, the future father of your other children. So it's just kind of interesting. But nevertheless, she pays Max what she owes him, but the job they pulled was outside of his territory, which he was like, no. Regardless, you're living in Oceanside, so you have to pay a tax. So it's like, no, it doesn't matter if you take a job outside of that. Like, you're living here. So it's like, obviously, like, she thought she found a loophole around it, but it's like, oh, no, there's no loophole. Like, any money you make is mine. So he's got to be a D-bag about it, which I love that Billy's, like, back and everything. He's like, right, your problem is, you handle the hard types, like, Max, like, you don't run your mouth too much. And she's like, oh, like, I run my mouth too much. And, you know, it's like, kind of talking about him. He's like, oh, basically, like, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, implying he's good with his mouth. I'm like, yo. And she's like, yeah, come back to my place. And it's like, oh, having him set up the VCR, stuff like that. He's like, oh, I'm an entrepreneur. And, like, Andrew's like, are you, like, good with, like, tech stuff? And he's like, oh, this is a piece of cake. And then immediately can't get it working. But the kids get sent to go get snacks. I'm surprised that situation with Max turned out the way it did, just because, like, him, like, threatening the kids, like, oh, like, you know, kids understand a lot more than adults give them credit for. So, like, I thought Pope was going to do something. I expected Pope, like, to stab him or something, and I thought, like, I felt like that could have gone sideways easily. He could have easily, like, hurt, you know, Andrew just to make a point. But I think that's what frustrates Andrew so much. It's like, right, this guy, like, I've been ready to mess him up because he's threatening my mom. I'm ready to mess him up, but he couldn't do anything in that moment. He stood in front of him, got between him and Julia, but it's like, it's still like, I didn't do anything, and I think that's what frustrates him the most. Like, I expected him to do something, but I think, like, Andrew's not quite there yet to be, like, her little bulldog, you know? So we'll see, but I think this might be the opening stage for it. But then you had that moment, like, Julia's freaking out and stuff like that. He said that we live with him, and she's like, dry your tears. It's like, she made some offhand reference. I'm like, oh, no one, God, like, Smurf, like, comfort your daughter. But I think it's like, right, I had to grow up and be strong. It's like, so she's in, like, how she grew up and what, like, it's like, your daughter wouldn't even be in this situation if you weren't in the life that you were living. So it's like, it's so messed up that you're holding her to the standards of like, oh, hold yourself together, like, pull yourself together, stop crying, like, grow up. It's like, she's a child, but it's like, once again, like, you can understand now, like, it's adding context why Julia's like, I need to get the hell away from you. You, like, the way you raised me and my brother, like, come on, like, what you turned Pope into, and like, because Pope was always like going to be your little soldier. I was always kind of like the one that was a little like, because Pope was always he's a little messed up. He's not as in tune with his feelings as Julia. She's a little more sensitive, which she has every right to be because she's a child growing up in an environment. But it's like Smurf is like, I grew up fast. I learned how to take care of myself. Like, you need to do the same. So it's like, you can see where that could lead to like some harboring like resentment from Julia, but also like why they weren't so copacetic. Like, because her relationship with Julia, she carries and loves with Julia, but there's still that angle of just like, you're not handling it. I mean, who am I to judge another parent and how they handle stuff? But you gotta admit, like, her making those remarks is making it sound like, oh, Julia, get your stuff together, get your shit together. You're weak and like, don't be so weak and pathetic, essentially. Because like after she's like, yeah, don't cry. She just kind of like puts her off her knee, and she's almost looking like, really, stop being such a crybaby, like, oh, you're so annoying that you're a crybaby type of thing. Like that's the vibe I got from it. So I knew it would be sooner or later when, like, Smurf is going to take care of Max, but it seems it's going to be a lot sooner, just because it's like, all right, you got to nerve to threaten my family, you say I owe you, all right, don't worry, I'm gonna take care of this, you know? So we'll see how that plays out, because I guess she's going to take over Max's operations, and that's eventually how she's going to start running Oceanside. It's like, right, you want to become the big dog, you got to, if you want to go from the minor leagues to the big leagues, you got to take out the big dogs, I guess, you know, so I guess that's where we're going to head in that direction, like I said, sooner rather than later. So definitely interesting developments in the past, but present day, obviously, you have Darren hitting Jay up about, like, right, the situation that Adrian's sister was using to was it a hula or something like that, to get money to Adrian. It's like Darren's thinking of robbing that. Obviously Pope's got to deal with getting rid of the vehicle because, right, everything he did helping out Cassandra, like, right, got to make that disappear. But that in his attempt to make that disappear, he learns about, like, right, their names have kind of been run through the mug because Pete's running around, running his mouth, being like, yo, don't do business with the Codys. There's too much heat on them right now. Because, like, it's like, yo, like, take this truck off me. But he's like, yeah, I'm sorry, Pope, but I can't do business with you. Like, everyone knows you have heat on you. And I love that Pope shows up and says, yo, I want to talk to Pete. What you got to talk to Pete about? About running his damn mouth. And as I tell Pete he messes with my family's business, I'm gonna mess with his. I'm like, yo, I love how intimidating Pope can be. But now it's like, right, they're aware now that, like, Pete's kind of screwed their name up. So, like, no one's going to do business with them because everyone thinks, like, the DEA's after you. Which, obviously, Darren feels the brunt of that because the liquor board basically snatched up everything, shut down his bar, took his kegs. At first, he thought it was, like, those other guys they brought it out with. I guess that's actually showing that they have some level of decency, I guess, in a weird way to say. And because, like, Darren's assuming, like, right, we basically kicked their asses last episode. They couldn't get their way on their own. Like, rather than coming at us and facing us like they should, they went behind our back and talked to the liquor license, but obviously it ended up being Living Good. So I guess in a weird way, it's almost like saying, like, wow, those guys actually have a little more sincerity, like a little more honor on some level. It's like, right, they got their asses kicked. They didn't go whining like little babies. It's like they took their ass kicking. Like, I think that's almost like the vibe Darren was almost kind of, it almost seems like there's supposed to be like some honor in the fact is of like how they've potentially handled it and they haven't like retaliated in kind of like a punk made move by going through the liquor licenses. Because Darren's thinking initially it's them. It's like, right, like the fact is people like them come in and they price up the business and stuff out and kick out locals. So it is a situation where it's like, yeah, my business is being affected, but it's also like, right, this is part of gentrification. Like, you know, that's what they're kind of fighting against the most, but it's still like, I don't know. Like I said, it still comes off a little hipstery, but it's like, right, I do understand, like, the gentrification of it all. So, like, I get where, like, both Craig and Darren seems a little more, like, understandable. Craig, I guess that's his fight, but he just never put it as eloquently as Darren has. He just makes it seem like, nah, this is our play. Like, how could these hipsters come into ours? But, like, that's always the vibe I got from Craig, but Darren made it, like, no, from a gentrification standpoint, like, I get why, like, he'd be against a business like that and everything. But finding out that it's Living Good that's screwing over his livelihood. And obviously they all have to sit down. Also, Craig's off running wild. He's at Darren's place, inviting other people. It's like, how the hell are you going to invite other people to your brother's place? Because he's dealing with the whole, like, rent situation. And I love the, you know, one of them is like, yo, like, I hope your kid doesn't grow up with a stepdad. He's like, my kid's not going to have a stepdad. He's like, yo, my stepdad kicked me out because I, like, was going through his stash and stuff like that. So he's like, you can stay here as long as you shut your mouth, because it's like, right, last thing I need is some punk kid telling me about my life situation, which he wrote up on Candace, Ren's mom, which I was like, I'm trying to remember, had she popped up before? Because I was like, wait, it's Constance Marie, holy shit. Like, God, she's so fucking beautiful. I was like tripping because it's like the thing like I best know her from is like the George Lopez show. I'm like, has she popped up as Ren's mom before now? She must have. I just didn't remember. I was just like, holy crap, it's Constance Marie. That's awesome. But nevertheless, it's like, oh yeah, my daughter wised up and got rid of you. It's like, do you also know that your daughter, like, oh, it's not like, oh, it's like she's just, oh, I'm high or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, Craig's not in his right state of mind. But also I'm like, I mean, considering everything going on, but it's like, I'm surprised he didn't take, I mean, I guess, they've never been on good terms, him and her mom, but it's like, right, your daughter just took off on my son, like, I'm his father, I have every right to see him, but also, do you know that your daughter's back to selling drugs? Do you know what our argument was about? Because I was telling your daughter to stop selling drugs, but then, like, I don't know, like, how much, like, Candace knows about what the Codys do. Like, I mean, obviously their reputation runs wild, so I'm like, I don't know how much she knows. Once again, she's probably popped up before and I just don't remember. Like I said, I binged like the first 3 seasons like back to back, like around the time season 4 was airing, so like I don't like a lot of that kind of blurs together, so like a lot of the finer details I feel like I'm missing remembering wise. So if she has popped up before, do let me know in the comments down below. Like I said, I just don't remember. But it's like, I mean, granted, like, regardless of, like, yeah, Craig was trying to get her, but it's also, like, he was kind of an asshole about a lot of stuff he said, so the way he was kind of getting up her in the grill about a lot of stuff, but it's like, yeah, like, your daughter was up to some shady stuff, like, way before she even kind of really got mixed up with me, like, she was in, and I'm trying to get her to stop, like, selling drugs, like, to be fair, her daughter is on, like, that climb of, like, yeah, you're doing more and more extreme stuff, and I don't think that's good. That's going to land you in some trouble, which eventually will land back at the Cody's doorstep as well. So that's definitely going to be interesting. But because of that, like, he also started shit with a cop on a bike. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, the whole point is, like, you already know, like, there's people looking into the Cody family. Like, why are you going to add more fuel to the fire? Granted, you're wearing a bike helmet. The bike's probably got, like, no, like license plates or anything, so he was able to lose the cop and made him fall off his bike. But I was like, that was like completely unnecessary and reckless. So Jay had actually checked out that spot, but it turns out that place doesn't do large volumes. At most they'll do 1,000, and like even Adrian's sister's been sending him like 500 books at a time, so it's not like a lot. So that place is sitting on like a couple grand at most, so it's not even worth robbing as they're trying to figure all this out. And it's just kind of like, it's like, whoa, Ren walked away, and it's like, Darren's immediately like, right, it's kind of messed up for a mother to take away a child from his father, but, it's interesting, Darren would have that perspective, but then what was post perspective? He's like, yeah, we don't know all there is to it, because, like, he's in defense of the mother. It's like, of course he's going to have that perspective, because, the recent situation with Cassandra, plus obviously like he's coming at it from his perspective because he grew up without a father, and like all that Smurf did. So like there's a because all that's a deeper, like, helping out Cassandra and everything, trying to give a boy back to his, like, so because I initially didn't even think about that. I simply just took it as a Smurf thing, but sitting here talking about it made me go like, all right, obviously like he would have that perspective because of the Cassandra thing, which I said it's still a byproduct of like not knowing his dad, and also like because his dad had died before he was even born, but also like Smurf raising him and everything. So there's elements to that, but that's kind of interesting. But there's a whole conversation about like it's like, oh, how did you it's like, where have you been staying at then? He's like, yeah, I mean, at your place. It's like, wait, what? It's like, mainly on the outside. It's like, yeah, I mean, for when I had to use the bathroom. It's like, and how did you deal with that? He's like, all right, I broke a window. He's like, you broke into my house? And I love that you see like just Pope just staring straight ahead looking at the situation, and you just see Jay turning to Pope like, well, this is awkward. And it's just like, I love that. It is kind of messed up thinking like, right, you broke a window just to break into my house, bro? Like, what are you doing? He's like, my son is going, and you're more concerned about me breaking into your house? I mean, to be fair, like, Darren's got a lot on his mind. It's not just that. So, but I love when Darren comes back and it's like, God damn it, just get out of here. It's like, oh, Craig said we could stay here. Craig's an idiot. Go. And I love the dude being like, oh, like, could you drop us off? He was like, no, go to school or something. God damn it. I love how frustrated he was in that situation. That's just the fact is that kid had the nerve to be like, oh, can you drop us off somewhere? It's like, who the fuck do you think I am, kid? I'm not Craig. Oh, dude, I love it. Like, Craig's kind of going through a little bit of a midlife crisis, an early midlife crisis. So, like, once again, he's dealing with a lot with Ren and Nick, and then on top of that, there's the whole situation with, once again, I think it's all a byproduct of things with, Smurfs. That's like like I said, Pope's the only one that kind of dealt with it the most. It's understandable. He's the oldest of the siblings. He was there. Like, obviously, he had his, like, complicated special attachment to Smurf. Like, they all did, but his was on another level because he was like her go-to. He was her go-to for, like, a lot of, like, handling a lot of wet work, all the dirty stuff. So it's so they had their relationship. So it's a little different than, like, Darren and Craig's relationship with their mom. But other than that, like, Craig did go to Frankie's because Jay had figured, like, right, there must be another, like, hula or whatever, but that's like that, but handles a larger volume. So it's like, right, we got to figure that out. And so Craig went to see Frankie because Jay had suggested that. They, like, screw over one of her other clients in that regard, which he initially went over there kind of like, oh, he just wanted to feel good and kind of forget. But then, like, he drops the information that I have a son. He's like, wait, you have a son? She's like, yeah. And I guess, like, for Frankie, like, that kind of changed things. Like, part of me was like, did it ever come up that Frankie has kids or something like that? Because, like, that changed the whole conversation for her. It's like, oh, like, it's going to be fun and everything until she's like, wait, you have a kid? And it's like, yeah, I don't think me and Ren are ever going to be together and stuff like that. So she just kind of put a cover on him and walked away. But obviously, he brings it up to her, and she's like, right, I have some ideas, but it is going to be dangerous. So, like, these type of people, these are probably the type of people you don't want to owe money to, because these are, like ruthless businessmen of, like, oh, these people have connections, and you will end up dead, buried in a ditch type of situation. It feels like it could be set up for that, so. I'm surprised that Cartel thing never came back around. I mean, that could always rear its ugly head, but, I mean, the coke is gone, and the people, because the one dude did get away, but they did take care of the other one, so there's always a possibility for that circling back around. Not unless that ends up being a thing of, like, not unless that's the dude that, like, Frankie owes money to is kind of connected to that, so that'd be interesting, or maybe the person she's going to end up setting them up with robbing is going to be connected. You never know. Because criminals have, like, their fingers in all kind of pies and stuff, so that's definitely going to be interesting to see where it goes on that front. But I also thought it was pretty dope, the conversation that Pope had with Jay about the whole, like, for one, they're scrapping, like, pieces of the truck and stuff like that. But then there's a conversation of, like, right, like, there's, God, what is it? I forgot the exact term that Pope used, but he was basically, like, inadvertent, like, obstacles in your way or something like that, where it's basically like, right, you're just trying to live your life, take care of your family and stuff like that, and just something comes in your way, and then Jay's like, right, it's like an animal in the middle of the road. You either, like, swerve out of the way and could potentially cause more damage to your car, and just, that could be an issue in its own right, or you just plow right through the animal blood on the road, that type of thing. And Pope's like, yeah, exactly. And then I love that Jay was like, right, and, if there's anyone that gets in our way, we'll plow through them like an animal. And then, like, Pope kind of giving a nod, like, yeah. And it's like, yo! Because it's like, honestly, it's the Codys versus everyone. It's like, fuck anyone else that isn't part of this family. If you get in our way, we'll, like, steamroll right through you. Which is interesting how that ties into, like, the whole Chadwick situation. When they're, Darren had talked to him about, like, right, you didn't give us any heads up, but it's like, right, Living Good went around, like, he didn't go through Oceanside PD to, like, make that happen. So, like, he was able to kind of directly have that. I mean, he's a Fed, so, like, they have a lot more muscle in that regard. But it's like, he's like, Darren's asking him to handle this now. And so it turns out, like, he wants to meet with all the Codys, and then he's working with a Living Good, which I didn't realize this at the time. I'll bring this up during Roswell, but I believe the actor who plays Living Good is the same actor who plays Eduardo in this season of Roswell, New Mexico. I never realized that, because I think, like, because he's got facial hair, like, it's been a while, so I guess it just didn't correlate in my head of, like, oh, I didn't realize that was the same. I believe it's the same actor. I could be mistaken, because in he's clean shaven here, but in Roswell, New Mexico, he has a little facial hair, so I think maybe that's what kind of. I didn't correlate it in my head until I looked at him in this episode. I was like, isn't that Eduardo from Roswell, and I think it is. But I'm like, no. I was like, your boy Chadwick's been playing him this entire time. I was like, I knew something was fishy about this guy. And so he rolls up with Living Good, which Living Good's like, oh, dude, you might not think I don't have anything on you, but I'm gonna come down on you like a bag of bricks. He's like, you took Adrian away from me, like a whole bunch of money went into this my investigation, years of my life. It's like, dude, you can't blame us for that. That's on you. And so he's walking around, and I was looking at Pope. I was like ready to pop off, dude. You could tell he was like him and Jay just had that conversation about it. So I was wondering what Pope was going to do. He ultimately didn't do anything, but I'm sure it was crossing his mind. I think that's the interesting parallel, because like in the past with the whole Max thing, he didn't do anything, and that it's like, right. I think that's the interesting parallel, because like he didn't do anything then, and his mom's like, don't worry, Maxie's never going to bother us again. And a similar thing happens in this regard of like someone else handles it. But because I love that he's like, yeah, I'm gonna get everything, I'm gonna come after everything that you own, your mom's property, your dead brother's property, your bowling alley, you're done. Like, I'm gonna be like, the way the camera angle was, I was like, dude, Chadwick's gonna shoot him, isn't he? He's gonna kill him. And he's like, yeah, I'm coming down, like, oh, I'm gonna be the one you see tonight. Pop! I was like, I knew it! So that's what this is like. Yo, this is hardcore. He's like, man, that dude would never shut up. I didn't know about the bar license thing, but like, I knew this type of guy, like, he would never back down. He'd never stop. He's like, you guys really pissed him off with that whole Adrian thing. So like, he's never gonna stop. So you asked me to take care of it. And Darren's like, not like this, because you killing a cop is the worst possible thing. I'm sure it probably also like triggers some PTSD, because it's like, right, the last time they saw this exact situation was when Jay blew their mom, like, headshotted their mom right in front of them. So I'm sure like there's some PTSD in that. But more so than anything, it's like, and it's not just a regular cop, it's a freaking Fed that you killed. And he's like, yeah, he showed up in his skivvies and everything. He was so excited when I told him I was playing you guys. But it's like, yeah, you asked me to handle it, and I handled it. He's like, but now this proves that I am worthy. So it's like, right, so you guys are going to pay me $5,000, and we're going to make it $2,000 a month. So, right, prove how useful I am. So, yeah, it's cars outside. We drove here separately. I'm going to hold on to the gun and everything to keep it safe. And it's like, well, so Chadwick's kind of like, I mean, I get why he did, but it's still kind of like, right. Because you also made sure to, I mean, I guess it makes sense. You want it to be in a place that the Codys themselves have control over. It is Darens Bar, so, like, you don't want it to be in a place that they don't have control over who's coming there. You know the bar's shut down, so no one's going to be rolling in except for the Codys, because it being home turf, it's a little easier for them to take care of it than, like, a public enough space where you could have eyewitnesses nearby and stuff like that, so that's just, it's one thing after another. When it rains, it pours. So how they're going to handle this, it's definitely going to be interesting to see where the next episode takes us with all of this. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.